Can someone who heard the gospel clearly but didn't trust Christ and then misses the rapture be saved after the rapture? Do folks get a second chance? Do you worry about whether your family and friends who don't believe the gospel are going to miss the rapture and then not have another chance ever to be saved again? Stay tuned. Hi there, I'm Lee Brainerd. Welcome to Soothkeep and another edition of Prophecy in the Crucible. My mission is truth, truth at any cost, truth above every other consideration, and this with the special focus on truth in the prophetic arena. Now, I've started a new section of videos for my YouTube channel called Questions from My Mailbag. This question tonight was asked by Mia. She asked if folks can have a second chance after the rapture. This is going to be our topic of investigation tonight. This is a hot topic for many. It's a divisive question for many others, and some literally agonize over this question. Hopefully by the time we're done with this video, you will not agonize over this passage or wonder what it's saying anymore. Well, let's start by reading the passage. We're going to read 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verses 8 through 12. And then shall that wicked one be revealed, whose coming is after the working of Satan with all lie authenticating powers, signs, and wonders, and with all the deceitfulness of unrighteousness in those that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they might all be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. Now, folks use this as an argument that if you miss salvation this side of the rapture, when you've clearly heard the gospel, you don't get a second chance on the other side. This is the no hope argument. Now, folks that do this, they grab onto phrases like they receive not the love of the truth, the phrase strong delusion, the phrase that they might be damned. And they take these phrases and they jump without justification and without real application of the scripture to the idea that this applies to everyone who had a chance prior to the rapture and didn't believe the gospel. But folks, this just is not the case. Now, I want to make this clear. These are clear statements. They mean exactly what they say. There really will be a great delusion. But these passages, these phrases, don't apply to everyone simply because they missed the rapture when they'd heard the gospel clearly before the rapture. To come to this kind of a conclusion, it's really inattention to the context and to related truths. The fact of the matter is, this passage is all about the Great Delusion. It's not about the Great Doghouse. This is about God sending the Great Delusion to those that actively hate the truth. It's not about God putting folks in the doghouse of rescinded gospel opportunity just because they passed up a pre-rapture gospel opportunity. We need to make a distinction here between active haters of the truth and the gospel and those that are simply delaying their belief in the gospel, or they're indifferent to the gospel, or they're deceived by a false church, or even just a bad gospel preacher. See, folks, the Great Delusion is for those who have a seared conscience. It's for intentional apostates. This is not God saying, folks, you passed up your chance, so I'm not giving you any more chances. God is a God of second opportunities. His mercies are new every morning. And this principle is not going to be tossed in the dumpster just because the rapture happened. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Outward religion can change when we change a dispensation. But the conditions for salvation and the opportunities for salvation never change. Well, let's take up the question of who gets the Great Delusion. I want you to notice the order in the passage. Those that God sends the Great Delusion to are those that earlier in the passage faced the Antichrist test and failed. That's in verses 8 through 10. They caved into his lies. They caved into his deceit. They believed his signs. These folks were given a clear choice between very clear truth and very clear lies. They were given a choice between very clear truth and very clear unrighteousness. They were in the middle of God's great sifting, where God is giving every man on the planet a choice between obvious right and obvious wrong, obvious truth and obvious lies. And the difference is so clear that there will be zero excuse for those that believe the Antichrist lies. Now, this sifting involves a leftist populist politician by the name of the Antichrist who rejects the Bible. He's going to be a couple notches above the wicked left that we see today. But at the same time, there's going to be a powerful spirit-filled testimony here on earth pleading for the truth, pleading for God's way. And if they had 1 ounce of care for the truth, for right, for common sense, they would have rejected the Antichrist. But these men fail the test, and they fail it because they love unrighteousness. They love the LGBTQ movement. They love abortion. They love the welfare state. They love evolution. They love their sin. These folks are given strong delusion. Now, what does this strong delusion do? It takes them from merely embracing a leftist populist politician who rejects the Bible and the God of the Bible, all the way to embracing the Antichrist as God, the first ascended master of the human race. They're going to end up forsaking every vestige of truth and morality they once had. So the bottom line is, these folks, prior to being given the Great Delusion, are guilty of far, far, far more unrighteousness than merely turning down the offer of salvation or thinking they can be saved tomorrow or thinking they're going to be saved some other day. The bottom line is, the difference between those that choose the Antichrist and those that say yes to the gospel boils down to this. These Antichrist folks were given the choice between drinking filthy pond water and living water. And they chose the nasty pond water, and therefore God gives them the sewer water of the Great Delusion. Now, another point I want to point out is that there is a precedent in the Bible for people getting salvation after a change of dispensation. I want you to notice that Jesus' brothers were saved after the cross and after Pentecost. They didn't get saved earlier as Messianic Jews before the cross. Now remember that God set the temple and Judaism aside. He rent the veil. This is setting that whole dispensation aside. And these boys, these brothers of Jesus, got saved in the next dispensation, after the rending of the veil, after the cross, after Pentecost, after the church started. This means it's a bunch of foolishness to say that there's no second chance in the next dispensation for those that heard the gospel very clearly, heard about Jesus, knew Jesus, saw Jesus, and didn't get saved. The truth is, every unsaved person on the planet gets a second chance every day. This takes us to the heart of God. God is a God of second chances. Just think about the parable of the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15. Here this guy walked away from the father. He was lost. He was eating in the hog pen with the hogs. He finally comes to his senses. And God doesn't say, you walked away, you missed your opportunity. No, God embraces him, gives him the robe, gives him the best ring, kisses him, and throws a party for him. In fact, in the scriptures, we see God jumping for joy whenever a sinner gets saved. Remember, the passage says, there's joy in the presence of the angels over every sinner that repents. This is not talking about the angels rejoicing. This is rejoicing that the angels are witnessing. It's God that's getting excited when a sinner repents and believes the gospel. Think also of Lamentations chapter 3, verses 22 and 23, where we read that God's mercies are new every morning. It's on account of his mercies that we even make it another day. And in John 6:37, we read that all who come to me, I will in no wise cast out. God never says, you came to me too late. Oh, you waited too long. You didn't accept my gospel preaching last week. Now, he never says anything like that. If you come to him, you will be received. Think also about the parable of the two sons in Matthew 21, verses 28 through 32. One of the sons says no, and then he turns around later and changes his mind. Take heart here. This is God telling you that he's the God of second chances. And in Luke 23, verses 39 through 43, we read the account of the thief on the cross. Here's a man on hell's doorstep who originally on the cross joined the other thief in not believing in Jesus. And then later on, while he's on death's doorstep, he believes the gospel. So this brings us to the real picture of the tribulation. The tribulation is not God putting people who had an empty profession of Christianity in the doghouse because they weren't really saved. It's not God taking people who had a clear gospel preaching presented to them before the rapture and they missed it and putting them in the doghouse. No, the real picture of the tribulation is God trying to save as many people as possible. He's not going to turn down people simply because they were too slow, or they had too many chances, or they missed a chance last week, or they missed a chance prior to the rapture. The only people that are going to be turned away are the apostates who hate the light, and they are only turned away because they turn themselves away. They reject obvious truth and light, and God lets them have the great delusion. But God is going to be trying to force every man off the fence and come off on the gospel side if possible. He's going to up the heat of judgment. He's going to up the power of the testimony. Ultimately, there's going to be the 144,000 that are preaching the gospel. There's going to be two witnesses, Moses and Elijah, preaching with the same power and authority they ever preached in the Old Testament with the same miracles. There's going to be a great outpouring of the Holy Spirit upon all believing Jewish flesh. The world is going to see some of the greatest demonstrations of power they've ever seen since the Lord and his disciples walked on the earth. And personally, I think there's going to be a great harvest immediately after the rapture. I think millions of folks around the world are going to be saved. Millions of people who had an empty profession of Christianity and were just playing games. Millions of people who were in false, deceiving ways, like the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Catholic Church. And they're going to see the truth. They're going to see the reality, and they're going to get saved. There's going to be millions of people who said no. Their parents preach the gospel to them. Their kids preach the gospel to them. Their neighbors preach the gospel to them. People in church preach the gospel to them. And they said no. And they're going to have a great opportunity. They're going to be thunderstruck when they miss the rapture. They're going to see millions of people vanishing. And this is going to shake all those that knew better and didn't do better. It's going to shake people who didn't know better. Family and neighbors and acquaintances. It's going to cause them to open their eyes and look up. The government, of course, is going to spin a bogus story. The media is going to fall all over themselves telling that bogus story. But every half-sober person on the planet is going to know or find out exactly what happened. They're going to know that it's the real Christians and only the real Christians. Those Bible thumpers who took the whole Bible dead seriously. They are the ones that went up. And all this ruckus down here is going to create a gospel opportunity. And there's going to be a great multitude saved, which no man can number, that's going to come out the other side of the tribulation. And that doesn't even include the martyrs. So folks, in conclusion, don't get crushed by bad teaching on this passage. Don't believe this teaching that if you hear the gospel prior to the rapture and you don't believe it, you don't get a second chance after the rapture. That is not based on 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, 8 through 12. It's based on vain imagination. Family and friends are going to get a second chance. Now, obviously, we'd wish they'd be saved on this side of the rapture. It is not going to be a picnic to go into the tribulation. But unless they are already true apostates with the seared conscience, they are going to get a second chance on the other side of the gospel. And folks, everybody, every unsaved person every day gets a second chance. So talking about a second chance on the other side of the rapture is irrelevant. But I even want to encourage you with the apparent apostates, because folks, you can't always tell if someone really is a true apostate or they're just dabbling with deep-dyed darkness and hell. Folks have been saved out of the most profound darkness, even satanic groups. They've been saved out of fairly high positions in secret societies. They've been saved from every kind of wickedness and debauchery on the planet. So keep praying, keep preaching, and keep teaching, because time is short, eternity is long, and the rapture and the tribulation are just around the corner. Eyes wide open, brain engaged, heart on fire. See you next time.